All right. Welcome, everyone, to Critical Mess, brand new podcast where we talk about the movies critics hate and audiences love, and sometimes vice versa. So we are three cinephiles just sitting around talking about movies, and we used to talk about movies all the time and still do, and decided we should start a podcast. You know, fuck it, here it is. So we decided that, what would be a good place to start would be the 1991 film Hook by Steven Spielberg, directed by Steven Spielberg. Many of you are probably familiar with it. It's kind of the story of a grown-up Peter Pan and how he sort of redeems himself with the Lost Boys and his children. So anyways, sorry if I spoiled that for you, but it's been out for 30 years. So
why isn't it called Pan?
I think we should get into that.
Oh, okay.
Because it is interesting that the titular character is, it's interesting how that person is treated. Dustin Hoffman, the great Dustin Hoffman. Movie also starring Robin Williams, Julia Roberts, Bob Hoskins, who I always think of as Super Mario. Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Roger,
yes, of course. And then Maggie Smith, who I have an interesting point to bring up about, which I think will be a lot of fun.
What do you guys know that I don't?
We'll get into it. We'll get into it. So we use kind of the metric that we use is Rotten Tomatoes to decide what critics was deemed fresh or rotten by critics and audiences. And, we look for movies that are, 20, 30, 40% or more disparity between the two. So when we came across Hook, we were maybe a little surprised to see, as some of you also might be, that the percentage on the critic side is low. It's 29% currently on Rotten Tomatoes as of the start of 2023. So the audience score, conversely, is at 76%. So that's a pretty big disparity. And as we know, Hook is a pretty beloved film by many. So we're going to talk about why the gap is so big and kind of what we thought about the movie. And we're going to have a little bit of fun. So guys, real quick before we start, I've done a lot of rambling here. I want to give you guys a chance to introduce yourself. I'm going to quickly introduce myself if I haven't already. That was probably should have done that at the start, but my name is Nick. I have been watching movies for a long, long time. I think probably my fondest movie memory is watching all the original Star Wars films over and over again on tape to VHS. Where many key parts of the film were missing, and I didn't realize that until I was, in my late teen years, such as the first 30 minutes of A New Hope. I'd never seen it because I had just always been watching this tape my whole life. So just a random movie weird fact about me. My favorite film is Die Hard, and I often have tried to write screenplays, but I suck at it.
So you didn't know Luke had an aunt and uncle until you were...
No, I didn't. There was a lot more came together after I saw it. It was a little bit mind-blowing, but we'll get into that in a minute. But guys, please introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about why you're here and why you're qualified to talk about films.
My name is Brian. I love films as well. And my Rotten Tomatoes little profile tells me I've got 996 ratings. So, boy, I wonder what the 1,000th will be. Let's see, my latest rating was Idiocracy from 2006. Gave it a 3 out of 5.
Very underrated, in my opinion.
And that's a soft 3 out of 5. That could be a 3.5. We'll see. I need to sleep on it. I've seen it before, but not with critical eye. Let's see, what else? I saw The Matrix in theaters 8 times. So that's definitely in my top 5 movies of all time. Favorite movie of all time. I'm wearing the shirt. The shirt is a picture of a man saying, "Bing." Anybody?
Most people aren't going to get that.
Anybody?
I actually don't.
Can I tell you his name? His name's Ned Ryerson. Bing. You don't get
nothing.
Probably that's it.
I have not seen that until
favorite movie.
I wouldn't have known that unless I knew what your favorite movie was.
You already knew what my favorite movie was, right?
I did, but I did not understand that reference.
Okay, so
and I've seen that film at least
if you guys don't know what this shirt is, no one does.
He now looks very familiar.
Yeah. But it's a fun shirt. Now, in 2 weeks, Groundhog Day, watch it. Is your annual movie watch?
Yeah.
Turn it into tradition. Good call. What else? No, that's it. That's my claim to fame is liking a movie that No one believes it is really my favorite, but it's my favorite. And also, I'm kind of a contrarian, which is evident by my favorite movie of all time. Go, Nick. Go, Briz.
All right. So to round out our trio of hosts here, my name is Andrew. Huge fan of movies, always have been from a very young age, thanks to my older brother and uncles and older cousins that turned me on to movies that were way too old for my age at the time. Speaking of like Terminator, RoboCop, Predator, all these incredibly horrifying movies as a small child to watch, but it got me into so many films, and I just remember seeing all the rated R VHS tapes stacked on my uncle's like dressers and just grabbing one every weekend to see what they were.
Do you feel that damaged your psyche at all? Or?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, you do? Okay. I was going to say
Yeah.
that proves that.
Yeah, but my love for film is like so much greater. Now going back and watching those films, it's even better.
So net positive then.
Oh, for sure.
Good.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's definitely like a child of the 80s and 90s for sure, but all those movies were just action movies from the late 70s, 80s, 90s, and it was the best.
Yeah, the best.
But yeah, my addiction to movies definitely has grown over the years. In most recent years, I guess when my son was born, he did not sleep for the first few months. So I watched 2, 3, 4 movies a night while he was up just screaming. And that's all I did. I just watched as many movies as ever as a kid. And now he loves like old classic 90s, 80s movies to this day. I think it's the best part that he's like into those live action. Never was into animated films, and it's like the best to watch those now, especially this movie we're talking about now. We watch it at least once a year. So,
Man, I could have gotten through so many movies when my kids were born if I wasn't addicted to Lost.
see,
Sam, so much wasted time.
I have another kid.
Oh, all right. I had something funny to say about Lost, but we'll do that off the air. I thought I want to get on a Lost.
Yeah, please don't.
Let's get on a hook tangent.
Hook.
So we all just watched this movie again. We had all seen it before. I don't know how many times have you guys seen this movie now?
10.
10 times. How many times have you seen this film?
Easily 30 plus times, and I'm not even exaggerating.
30 times.
My son was obsessed with this film, just like any other 90s film, like The Rookie or whatever I can't remember.
Starring that same child.
Goonies.
Wait, Rookie of the
Crawford,
Year?
my son. Yeah, Rookie of the Year.
No, the child from the Rookie of the Year.
Oh,
it's the same kid, right? It's the same kid.
Yes.
No.
Is it not? Is it
Rowan Gardner.
This dude was in Can't Hardly Wait. Remember, he's the partier guy that can't feel his legs. And then he was also in What About Bob as the son. He may have been a Rookie of the Year. I hadn't seen that in a minute. So,
But a lot of these classic, 80s, 90s movies of just like Goonies or baseball themed. Anything with baseball, my son was obsessed with. So there's obviously a classic like baseball scene that's very, powerful in Hook that he attached himself to. And that was like one of the first scenes he saw.
I know.
He just, yeah.
I just give you kudos for seeing it 30 times and then still watching it as
I think it's just like, I mean,
that's dedication.
I mean, Brian, like you have kids, so like, that you may like start a movie and go do something while they're watching it or come back and so I've seen it countless times. It's at least once a year where we flip it on and the kids watch it. We watched it like maybe 2 weeks ago, and then I watched it again this week in prep for this podcast.
So the Rookie of the Year connection.
No, you're absolutely right. You know what? I just saw that kid, and that's I think why it was jogging my brain. He was in What About Bob? He was What About Bob? Yeah, but
Great movie. Actually, might need to add that to our list.
Yeah, I think it is a pretty great movie. I agree. I saw it at a very young age and did not understand it.
Same year, 91. We can't. It's got a good critic rating. Never mind.
Strike's already finding the list.
All right, let's move on. Hook.
All right, so
30 times, 10 times.
I'm saying probably third time, and I probably haven't seen it. Probably last time I saw it was it was 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
So
I had to preface. I have a terrible memory, so I can't, especially with newer movies or if I see something, I can't recall. I know like you remember quotes, Brian, from any movie. Like what did we watch recently? Speed, and he like remembered all these quotes.
Well, I mean that's Speed.
Well,
I've seen Speed 30 times.
Yeah,
probably.
But still, I've seen Hook 30 times. I can't. My retention of remembering things is definitely visual, but not. I can't remember lines as well.
So all right. So let's talk about sort of our. First impressions on a real. You guys have seen it a lot more than I have. So, but still, it was a fresh take recently. Let's hear what struck you. What were your first impressions of this last few?
Dang. I think how dark it was. Like just the tone. It definitely tonally, it was all over the place. Happy go lucky, dark, gloomy, whatever. But I forgot. I think it's just a thing of 90s films where the parents are on the verge of divorce, or I think of like Mrs. Doubtfire, another.
Okay, so we're going to bring that.
There's things that like
there's parallel to that.
yeah. So there's it's funny that like these films from that time, like I watch them now with my son, and they'll not catch on to those things. But me as an adult now, him like battling with his wife, like working like crazy and just ignoring his kids or screaming at his kids for being in the background, and then you have like Hook kidnapping the children, and like there's claw marks all over the walls, and like all these things. It just seems super dark, especially the first part. I mean, there's like horror movie-esque kind of vibes to it when he's raiding the house and getting the kids and stuff. But
You don't really get,
you don't see it. It's just
yeah, but you don't get away with that with kids movies as much these days.
Oh, absolutely.
I feel like that kind of that dark, and there's a few other kind of adult themes I believe that pop up throughout the film, and I think we will get to those.
And I don't believe this is a kids movie. So let me just say that.
Interesting. But please give us your.
My reaction is this is one of the rare movies that I saw when I was a kid. So it came out in '91. So I was 9 when I saw this. Saw it in the theater. Saw it at home. My whole life, I've kind of watched it intermittently throughout my life and as an adult. And when revisiting it, it's exactly what it was when I watched it in '91. It didn't lose anything. It didn't gain anything. It's just a great adventure movie, and I really like it. It's held up. I guess it's the type of movie that I wouldn't expect to hold up as it has, but it did for me. And there's things I appreciate about the movie now that I could care less about, or that I was actually really confused about when I was a kid when I watched. There's some confusing parts to the movie that I don't think are for kids. So to clarify, I do think it's a family movie. I don't think it's an adult movie. I don't think it's a kid movie. I think it's that true family movie because it's got elements in it that appeal to me, especially as a father in this movie, which that's one of the soft spots I've got is the father-son stuff going on. But then there's really good hero-villain exploration stuff. There's kind of a sports montage aspect to it and everything. So yeah, my initial reaction, great movie, rewatchable, holds up, not a perfect movie, but not a 29% critic Rotten Tomatoes score.
Yeah.
That's shocking.
Yeah, critics were absolutely brutal on this, and just reading the reviews and seeing how there was very short and just abrupt where it's like this movie was trash, or like this movie was not for kids, or something like that of that nature. And it's always funny to think. But I think what holds up for the long term on it is just how it just captures you in this world. Like I don't know if it's that Goonies did the same thing where they had like the matte painting and the set dressing, like this whole like world they built out. The graphics were obviously not that great, where he's flying or he's like riding that basket up from their mermaid.
I know.
Yeah, they were fantastic for the time. I think I'll get to that note later, but it's funny that I definitely got engrossed in this. Every time I watch it, I get like absorbed into it, that whole world.
Because a few things that take me out of it, but we'll get to that. Nick,
Yeah.
what were your what's your reaction to the movie?
I thought that it was, it just felt like kind of like, just classic, just, magical, whimsical Spielberg to me. And it just, it was just sort of delightful. I thought that it was not, I didn't think it was really evenly paced, I guess. I thought one of the kind of the big problems I had with the movie overall was I thought that the last act was pretty weak compared to the rest of the movie. It wasn't a disaster, but I felt like, it just didn't, the best parts of the movie weren't in the end for me at all.
Didn't need to be 2 hours and 21 minutes.
No. I think 30 minutes shorter would have been great. And I think it was, the other thing that struck me about the movie was just, it was really good at, which Spielberg always is, at just really manipulating your emotions, right? It just really brought you up and down quickly. And especially toward the beginning, the first 2/3 of the movie, almost every scene was kind of like a nice up and down. That's what any good screenplay does.
And you have the master emotional manipulator composer John Williams there to tell you.
The music was just super on, great score for sure. Yeah, but it's like you should either be like laughing or crying in every scene, and it's like it really does a great job of kind of ebbing and flowing in those two directions. So I enjoyed it.
So we all liked it. So it's universal. We don't have anybody among the three of us that I hated
clearly
this movie and I loved it.
I enjoyed it. I was pretty disappointed by the end, but I did enjoy it.
I'm looking forward to
For sure.
digging into that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think one thing that I just want to quickly say about this movie, and this is just the first thing that sort of struck me when I was thinking about it, is and perhaps the reason why the critical score is so low is because critics oftentimes tend to be cynical. They're cynics, right? They're critics. They're critical, right? And you just can't you can't watch this movie with even the least bit of cynicism, right, and enjoy it. You really just have to be just wide open and ready to just go on this sort of goofy adventure and just sort of just let it go. Because if you even try and sort of just pull things apart, examine things too much about this movie, you're just not going to have very much fun. So
I think it's misunderstood.
yeah,
It's a misunderstood.
well, yeah. Why do you say that?
Well, in reading a lot of the critic reviews that I've read, I have noted that and I've got some examples I can read, but just the reactions were to like a different movie. It's like, wait, that's not what the movie was trying to be. Why would you say that? So, for instance, let's see, something I read from. We'll just read something from the Washington Post talking about Hook. So clearly Hook is the name of the movie. So there's a lot to be said about Hook. That's why I teased earlier. It's not called Pan. It's called Hook for a reason. But this little snippet here. As Hook, wax-mustachioed Hoffman adapts memorable tics. His contorted British shtick is cartoonishly amusing, but he spends much of the movie marveling at his adversary. He's an admiring opponent more than a menace. So he's docking his performance because he's admiring Pan and not being just sort of this monster and menace. And so the idea there is that they're expecting the movie to be like a villain movie, And I don't think I would challenge us to find another movie where the name of the movie usually associated with the protagonist, but doesn't have to be. At least it's got it, like Joker, for instance. We look at Joker, another recent example. Or The Batman. There's a movie called The Batman and a movie called Joker. Completely different movies. They explore characters in the exact same universe, and the characters are pretty consistent with how they are in the other movies and entries in the franchise. And yet Joker is a movie about Joker. He's not supposed to be this menace. He's supposed to be an interesting character. So if you're looking at this movie to see a movie about a villain called Hook, that's what it is, but I don't think that's what it's selling itself to be. There's one more quote I want to find it here real quick, and it was about Hook. From Newsweek. Hook never becomes the dominating figure the title promises. I have a problem with those.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of agree with that.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right, say it again though.
It's all about expectations, I mean, if you expect it to be
I was expecting more. It was almost kind of like a very kind of a weak sauce version of like the Hannibal Lecter thing, where you've got kind of this, this kind of really intriguing character that just, in my opinion, probably didn't get enough screen time. And really, I mean, let's be serious. The only scene that I thought was truly interesting, where we got to the core of Hook's sort of deep despair, is when he's got the gun to his head and he's going to kill himself. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's an extremely serious.
I love that scene.
You
Don't try and stop me, Smee.
Yeah.
Smee. Stop me. Try and stop me.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a great scene.
It is a great scene, but it also, it just exposes a lot about his, just complete insecurity, right? And I just think that was interesting to me, and I didn't think there was enough of that if you're going to put that man's name on the title card.
But I like where you're going with that, because another thing I want to cue up for this is, what is this movie? I've heard it described as a retelling. I don't think it was a retelling.
No,
I think it's a what would happen
No way.
right?
Not a chance.
And so Hook, it's also been however many years for him. He may not be the same guy. It's not just retelling who Hook was. Now he's got this interesting facet to him where he wants to take his life because there's nothing to live for, kind of deal. And that's not the Hook that was in Peter Pan.
We've got a lot of time. I haven't now. I'm not well versed in the original Peter Pan, but I assume there's not a lot of time spent in the real world.
I got a confession to make. Hook.
You read all the Peter Pan.
Hook. When I saw Hook when I was 9, I had no concept for anything Peter Pan.
Wow.
And I thought the story of Hook was the story of Peter Pan. Until I was a late teenager, early adult, to when I went back and watched Peter Pan, and I was like, "Oh shit, this isn't like
There's a
Hook."
story there.
I mean, we really should have said, where did Peter Pan even come from? I have no idea. I should have done a little bit more
Who's the guy's name? Jay Barry, somewhere other.
Because I mean, as Yeah,
cold soul written novel. I'm almost positive if in recent years Peter Pan movies in general have all. I think it became, what is that called when it's common use?
Public domain.
Public domain. I believe it.
it's like a
became
classic
that.
fairy tale.
Yes.
And I haven't read it.
I don't. Either that or no.
We shouldn't even speak to it because none of us here know anything
Yeah.
about that. It kind of doesn't even really matter,
Yeah,
like
'cause
right now.
we won't fact check it later at all.
But I wanted to just follow up my point with just reading one more quote about Hook, and it's from Roger Ebert. The other key characters appear. Hook, played by Dustin Hoffman, as if he were doing an imitation instead of a performance.
Now, you know what? I think that's interesting because I know who he's imitating. He's imitating Jeremy Irons in Die Hard 3. Tell me they don't have the exact same intonation and the little, even just curves and figures of speech.
Okay.
I'm telling you, last night, the moment he walked out and started, I was like, that is Jeremy Irons right there. Now, that's not possible, I understand, because this movie came out before Die Hard 3.
Sure.
So if anyone's got a time,
That's funny.
I bet it's Jeremy Irons.
I'm not going to be able to watch Die Hard 3 the same.
Yeah.
But I will say, he's saying that Dustin Hoffman's doing an imitation of Hook instead of a performance. And so I've just read 3 different sources, people talking about this movie, and to what I sense is like an expectation of the movie that perhaps I would argue the movie wasn't selling or wasn't really trying to be. And I think I know what the movie was trying to be. And I think that the critics, if I had to oversimplify and say why it got such a low rating, one of the main reasons I think from the critics is because they are expecting or requiring this movie to be something that it's not trying to be. So
Yeah.
to me, disagree, but that was
Now,
my
now
reaction.
thinking about it, I never crossed my mind why this movie was called Hook, and I should have looked it up because there's got to be a reason behind it. And I have a feeling it was simply they needed a quick, hooky, a name they wanted a name that was quick, people could memorize it fast, and they knew exactly what it was when they saw it. That wasn't Peter Pan because it's not a story necessarily about Peter Pan. I think it's more about the adulthood and coming to grasp with it, and as Peter Pan goes from this mean adult and then finds his childhood glory again, or that mindset, you have Hook, who is this mean also, and he's trying to find that also at the exact same time, and they find it together at the very end. But it's interesting that I never even thought why is it called
Well, I think
that?
so. One thing that you were kind of getting to there that I had written down I thought was interesting is that I think really at the end of the day, if you look at what the core of what this movie is about, what it is, it's about parenting. It's about being parents, right? That's really what this film is about. And I also just find that I think Grizz, I think you brought up earlier, or maybe it was you, Brian, I don't know, but about that sort of parallel to a movie that came out in a very similar time as Doubtfire, which is exactly the same kind of sort of an absent father, that's just, trying to, just do right by his kids, but is falling short, and I just thought that was, and Robin Williams is clearly the perfect person for that kind of role. But I just thought that was kind of interesting how similar those two movies were at their fundamental core, I guess.
Agreed. And I would say this further. Mrs. Doubtfire is Robin Williams correctly cast as this type of father character arc, and Hook is Robin Williams miscast as this father character arc.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Because in Miss Doubtfire, he flexes his comedic, impersonation.
Yeah.
And this one, he turns into a superhero. And let's be honest, Robin Williams can do a lot, but I don't think he can be a stoic superhero. And I think, I think the Pan that he arcs into at the end of this movie. Now, I do think the father he arcs into when he comes home and he's like, Jack, always leave the window open, and he's fast talking and funny and back to normal dad mode, and he, here's cell phone, and that is, I like how the movie ends with that. I don't like when he becomes Pan fully realized, because that just, I can't buy into Robin Williams. I think he's almost maybe the worst casting choice that they could have had.
The 40-year-old in the tight tights,
And there could have been a lot of other better people. So that took me out of it. I will fault that a little bit.
Can we talk for a second about how he's 40 years old well, I guess it's not biological. Okay, never mind. I was thinking it's his great grandma. He calls Wendy his great grandma.
Yeah, so I did look at this.
I guess it's not biological, so it's
No, it's adopted family, right? Or his pseudo, because he actually did have parents called Wendy.
right.
So the thing is, Wendy. So he goes to Neverland, and then Wendy gets older and older and older. And who was it? Gwyneth Paltrow plays in that quick scene.
I saw that.
Yeah, so you watch her and they age her or whatever. And then who's the actress that plays I can't think of her name.
Or more Maggie Smith.
Yeah, Maggie Smith.
The mom?
So Maggie Smith at the time.
The mom is Wendy is Maggie Smith.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. So
Mom is, I don't know.
she's Grandma Smith, so she was like 55 at the time, and they aged her, so she's not actually 90 something years old. So that's all made.
I think you're supposed to be 88.
Yeah, so they say, okay. So I bet 92 or something like that.
Well, she was Professor McGonagall like 15 years later.
Yeah. That's right.
And she was her greatest role, in my opinion, is Downton Abbey. And,
so
she's.
I watched it twice in the last couple of weeks, and like the second time I did catch that. But he comes back to the house and he goes, I had been flying back to that same window over and over again, finding a different person every time or something like that. And he sees Wendy get older and older. And I was like, there was a quick scene where he had come and gone. And like, I was like, how many times did he come back to that house? Like before he just ran into Wendy? I was really confused by all the.
He came back. Wendy's old. And then he sees Moira over there asleep.
Yeah, that's
and he weirdly goes and
kisses her. Yeah.
Kisses this sleeping girl who's never met him.
And he becomes an orphan. And then he becomes an orphan and goes through the full process of being adopted and all that stuff, right? That's how that works.
Yeah.
Side note, do you guys get any Chronicles of Narnia vibes of where Solo grew up?
Yeah.
Do you think they, well, I don't know. We can always speculate.
But back to the whole note, I get this is a review from somebody, but this half of the review kind of touches on what you're talking about with the subject of Robin Williams and this casting thing. Is Hook is a huge and impressive movie. One could say it's the ultimate baby boomer fantasy. And I think it's funny that they mentioned that in the way that it's just specifically about this one type of person they're trying to make an art for. But I agree, he doesn't quite fit. Right when he gets to the Peter Pan part, it's always funny. I will admit, so Robin Williams, like I vaguely remember him in his stand-up days doing an interview and saying he was into weightlifting. And he actually does look, he wore like a fat suit. So he wore his clothes tight. And he had a little bit of a fat suit underneath all his.
So like this stand-up is fucking.
It's unbelievable.
Oh, it's great.
On some of those HBO specials. But like he had a fat suit on and he had this whole character built out. And then when he actually has his shirt off, he was actually slimmer, or he looked slimmer, and he actually had like pecs and he had like some probably abs painted on or whatever. But it was funny that they tried as hard as they could to fit him into that skinny Peter Pan childhood kind of role. But
yeah, it was. Yeah, I think we can all agree that the full Pan was rough.
Yeah. Can I just real quick round out my reviews by reading two of the audience reviews that I resonated with? I read these after I formulated my opinions, and I thought they really spoke to the agreement with me. And it's ironic; these are the latest two reviews. I mean, they were like within the last 2 or 3 days. Someone has posted these. So the first one says, and these are not critically written, so these are just Joe Schmoes off the street. So don't judge the grammar. But it says, one of the great films that seems totally misunderstood. Truly one of my favorites. So again, that's the misunderstood.
yeah,
I don't know if I would say it's misunderstood, but at least I do think it's expected to be something different. Maybe that does mean misunderstood. And the other one says, this is one of my favorite films of all time. Beautiful, fun adventure that provides a stellar performance from Robin Williams and Dustin Hoffman. I'd say the latter more than the former. Critics have it all wrong. Have some imagination on a delightful story. So there you go. That I feel like I resonate with those John Does or whoever they are.
So one thing that I wanted to bring up was that there were just a couple of little quirks in the movie that I thought were funny. First of all, how safe are those old, like those late 80s, early 90s BMWs that Robin that he drive? I can tell if it was a 5 or 7 series, but those were like just brand BMW. Anyways, but I digress. So there were just I thought it was funny that I don't know why I took this note, but that Robin Williams kept saying that my word is my bond. That's just a phrase I associate with like mid 90s New York hip hop. It's not really something I see like a 40-something.
It felt like the most lawyer thing that they could write up. Like that. Like,
I guess it does feel like some lawyers. That was just a hot phrase in hip hop there for a while.
Is that how he worded it? My word is my bond?
Yeah.
Word is bond. Like Nas always used to say that. Word is bond.
Because he was bond. Okay.
All right.
Because he told us that over his plane, right? Didn't he say?
He says it twice. He says it in the opera house or in the school play. And he tells him while he's on the phone, he's like, "My word is my bond." And he goes on the phone and then he says to get off the plane, I believe. Yeah. So it felt weird because it was very simple, like right after that scene. So they said it almost immediately. Like I always think it's funny when people say the same line twice in the same movie or the same little section.
So here's a quote I wrote down from this movie that I thought summed it up nicely. when we were talking about the movies about parenting, and what's her name, Moira?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's right. She says we have a few special years when our children even want us around, right? And you'll be the one running after them for attention here soon, right? And I think that, I'm not a parent, right? So I can't, kind of speak to that like you two might be able to, but I just thought that was just kind of very poignant, and I thought kind of summed up a lot of what the movie's about. Right, really realizing the magic of those early years of childhood.
And I love that scene because it was well written. Robin Williams doesn't just fly out the handle and dismiss it. He walks to the window and he's very sort of introspective. And he doesn't say anything right away. He's really thinking about what she has to say.
Yeah.
And I love how that sets in motion his very strong character arc, which is one of the strong points of the movie, is his arc. So yeah, that was a great scene up in the bedroom right after he screams at his kids.
Yeah.
And
Very tense.
and his son, he gets the fear God put in him, and he's like, sorry, like that son, what's his name again? Did we decide what his name was? Charlie Cosmo? Yeah.
Yes.
Charlie Cosmo.
As he pushes.
He was great.
Is there any chance he has not had some sort of major drug addiction in the last 10, 15 years? I hate to say it, but right? I mean, all the child actors.
Are not bad. That's something unfortunate.
Do that thing in child actor. TMZ follow up.
Yeah.
We're sorry, he was child.
Well, he played somebody that got fucked up on drugs and can't hardly wait. You guys remember that movie, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Classic.
Love that movie.
Now that's a movie I've seen like 7 times, and I don't know why.
Oh, and it's so quotable too.
It is.
I'm running it through the critical mass review tester. Oh, we got 40% critic. Please, high audience. Please, high audience. It's gotta be way. Yeah, 40 to 63. Put it on the list of.
I think that.
All right.
Yeah, 20%.
We can talk about Can't Hardly Wait next, and Charlie Cosmo will be the through line. No, just kidding.
There you go. Yeah. I think 20% is kind of our threshold, right?
Yeah.
20%.
Yep. And we should also caveat that one of our requirements is that one score is rotten and the other is fresh. So we're not gonna talk about a movie that's got like 75 critic and 95 audience. We're also not gonna talk about a movie that's got 25 critic and 45 audience.
Right.
It's got to have that caveat of being one fresh, one rotten.
Another thing I thought was kind of interesting that I don't know if you guys would agree with this, but there were a lot of like lines. There were a couple of lines in this movie that were like read like song lyrics to me. Sort of, they were just so like these really like a lot of meaning packed into a very few words. Like when Wendy says, "Come up, what's the child's name? Jack. Yeah. He's like, "Come on, I'm gonna show you where your dad and I used to blow out the stars."
Mm-hmm.
Like how poetic is that? You're blowing out the blow out the stars. It's just such a poetic.
It's whimsical.
Yeah. I've another one, I've forgotten how to fly. I'm lost. I'm lost. It's just so I can just see like, just some brooding jackass just with an acoustic guitar, just pining about some, girl that didn't want to date him, singing songs, lyrics like those. Anyways, so I thought that was kind of funny. I don't know if you guys had any particular quotes you thought, the other quote that that stood out was that they used several times with, "Death is the only great adventure left."
Oh yeah,
that's a pretty badass line. I mean, that's
very
some
badass.
PG shit.
And remember who says that?
I think multiple people say it.
Yeah.
Wait, read it again.
Maybe.
Death is not the only great, or death is the only great adventure left.
I'm gonna say somebody else. First Hook says it. And I'm gonna say somebody else quotes it back to him.
I think that's true.
But Peter says it.
That's one of the cool things about Hook here, and that's what gets into so I think this movie's 3 things. I think it's a father-son / family thing, like I said before. Second on that list, a close second, is I think it's a hero-villain study movie. Kind of like Lego Batman, if you've ever seen that. It's all about,
amazing,
how the Joker, needs Batman and Batman needs the Joker. It's been done a million times.
Yep.
So, and I think that's with Hook here. He's this desperate man who has to go kidnap these kids just to get his opponent back, because it's the only thing that gives his life meaning.
Yeah.
We talked about Goodfellas recently, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of the main character of Goodfellas. How it's not about what he has in life. The only thing that gives his life meaning is the crime. It's not the result of it. Anyways, the side note, but. So that's the second thing I think this is a hero-villain study. And then, like I said, the third one is kind of more like your generic sports kind of montage, character arc thing. So on that second one, I love that. I think that quote, "Death is the last true adventure." I mean, that's a badass quote.
It is
in a family movie, and it sits perfectly in there, and it just keeps those stakes high enough.
and that's what it's all about in screenwriting is the stakes. Life and death is the ultimate stakes.
Yeah, I told you this movie felt very dark when I thought about some of those lines when he said, especially when he does, like, gosh, I think it is when he does the suicide. He tries to shoot himself, and Shmi's there in the boat or the captain's quarters or whatever. And I'm almost positive that's where I can't think of where the second time is. Maybe it's in the final battle or when he sees Pan. I'm almost positive it's between him and Hook. But it just reminds me of just how dark some of these lines are. And you think about them a little bit longer and you're like, geez, like the marriage part, the kids, the father-son dilemma, and then the daughter's just kind of pushed to the side. Like he talks about his kids a lot, but he really focuses on his son, like big time. So I don't know if it's just wildly, it's just so dark when you think about some of this stuff.
Yeah, and now
This guy wrote the screenplay writer. What's his name? James V. Hart. He wrote the screenplay for Contact. Very good movie.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, the only other line I could think of that was quotable was Dad settles in. If there's any resistance, he blows him out with water. And then Wendy just says, it's just so good that like they have that little quick conversation. It's just, it's a good blatant and obvious that they're talking about pirates. And Wendy goes, oh, you could help pirate or whatever. And there's another little tidbit in the filming. Like, so if you guys don't know, that I looked this up and it was nominated for 4 Oscars. Did not win, but it was nominated for 4. Do you know what those 4 were?
Yeah, no. I mean, imagine there's a bunch of, it's not anything that anyone cares about.
Is there a film score?
Ooh, I bet. Well, that is something that people care about, and I bet is that. Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah. So there was
that one of them. Wait, let me keep guessing. If I'm wrong, tell me.
Yeah, go for it.
Is that one of them?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, I'm gonna double check, but I have it all written down. Yeah,
some sort of visual effect.
I was gonna say was there a practical effect?
No, it wasn't score. Okay, sorry, I had this. Really? Yes, go ahead. And this is the era of the Oscars and the nominations where they have multiple categories, but they're very similar. Mm-hmm. Where it's like makeup and hairstyle or whatever it is, just super. Yeah, or costume or whatever it is.
Yeah. I wouldn't say for any acting, but I would say for costume or makeup, and then maybe is there a production design or a set design?
Yeah, so there were a couple. That was where it was costume design, production design, visual specs, and makeup and hairstyle.
Okay, I was gonna say I don't think it'd be editing or anything.
Yeah, no, I thought score was on there for sure because Williams, that was still in his heyday.
Wait a minute. Wing wasn't his heyday.
Well, he's 90, still something. He's 90 years old. It's insane.
So guys, let's talk Smee.
Oh man, Smee, just chef's kiss. Bob Hoskins.
Yeah,
hilarious.
Absolute pro.
Yeah,
steals the scene whenever he's on screen. Not steals the scene, but I can't look away.
He just like oozes that nervous, my boss is watching me. I have to he has tics, like the little tics that he has that he's around Hook. And he's like, when he doesn't kick the steps down the ladder on the ship and Hook like immediately figures it, he has to look at him and he's like, oh, he runs over.
Smee, where's Smee? Smee. I'm Smee.
He's the ultimate sycophant. He's just.
What does that word mean for? Because I know what it means, but for the listeners might not know what that word means. So can you explain just for them?
A sycophant, yes. It means like kind of a worthless suck up.
Okay.
Yeah,
he's great.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's funny or what he says or how he moves. Like how he moves around.
His energy, it's just
so good.
Perfect. Yeah, it's perfect for the role. Yeah, he's an underappreciated actor. Yeah, R.I.P. I mean.
I didn't even know it was Bob Hoskins until like the most.
It kind of looks a little not quite like him
because I was thinking whoever this is great, and then Bob Hoskins.
Oh, yeah. My favorite scene, by far my favorite scene of him is when he's stacking the food on his plate in the captain's quarters and he's taking one bite of each. It's an old thing. You would have to take one bite before you get
to make sure it's
poison. So like it was my favorite. It's like my favorite scene. He's sitting there and he's like biting one thing. He puts it back down. And he chews it for a second as Hook is talking.
That's fine. Yeah, I didn't pick up on that. Well, I saw he did that, but I just thought he was just.
I thought he was indulging in all the food. You were like, yeah, it's so. 100% right.
This may be on your list, and I may be jumping the gun, but do we want to? I talk about like our favorite just single scenes in the movie at all?
Sure. Yeah. Why don't you start? I might think about that for a second.
Yeah. So my probably favorite scene, just from a comedic aspect, is the whole scene. It kind of starts with the carpet going down the stairs, but it's when he's talking about everyone believed in me. He's like, one of you didn't believe in me. And the whole parsing down, and to find out, which I'm not going to steal your thunder. The blue box, and just the irony of how, first of all, why did Hook do that? Like he didn't actually know that. He was just flexing his authority and kind of giving fear to his subjects or whatever. That's what he should do. But then the other funny aspect of that is that the person standing right next to Pan.
Yeah.
And the third funny part about that is that the person admits it. It's like everything about that. It's really, really good writing. So I'd say that's my favorite scene from a comedic perspective.
Yeah, I think that was definitely one of my most memorable scenes, just because it was so funny that all the men were like, they spread, and it's just him and Peter, and he obviously pushes Peter aside and focuses in on that guy. And funny enough, I just told you this the other day, Brian, but
do you want to tell us?
Yeah,
tell us about that.
One of the biggest Easter eggs in this film that I've known for a number of years is the actress Glenn Close. She was friends with Spielberg, and she was on set like visiting, and he asked if she could want to be a pirate in one of the scenes, and they just shot that whole scene for that specific spot. So she's in full makeup. Every year she posts on her Instagram or Twitter a picture of her from that scene of in the makeup chair or with her and her daughters in the movie, like they set and stuff. And so it's cool to like see that, and it's just insane.
That blew my mind. Yeah, I didn't believe you when you told me that.
It's so.
I'm like, I thought he's trolling. I'm like, well, where's the joke? Like, I'm missing.
Yeah, because I simply asked. I was like, I circled a picture of Glenn Close.
I thought you were like, maybe I was like, well, maybe he's making fun of the fact that Google's results are wrong.
Yeah,
or something. Yeah. But that was really her, and she was really good.
Oh, it's a fantastic.
I've always loved that. That's been my favorite pirate. I know that sounds really like a splitting hairs, but in my watching that movie, that's my favorite pirate, the Blue Box pirate.
Is there any other pirate that they focus on?
I mean, there's a lot of other pirates here.
I know they don't focus on it anymore. I mean, there's not like a dead scene other than that intro scene where they're like floating through the ship and they're like showing all them like, what does he say? Like
there are some pirates that give him guff when he first gets there, and they're like making fun out of his shoes.
Yeah,
so I don't know. Maybe there are only 3 to choose from. But but what I'm saying is, I've always loved that pirate and that performance, just the nuance of it for some reason, and to find out that it's actually a very accomplished actress. It's like, I wonder, like you either got it or you don't. And Glenn Close has it to be able to do this character that I never knew was her. So
yeah, I love it. That's definitely one of my favorite scenes. But it also was amplified because of her being that actor. So it's good.
Other favorite scenes for me, I love the clock smashing scene with Hook and Jack. Just always been a great scene. Just the way it's shot and the reflections of it's sort of a montage scene. Just everything about that scene really well shot. I'd say those are the two that stick out for me the most. I think, and I love when Hook just is Hook at the end when he, the last act is weak, but Hook is still great. The way he loses his wig and he plays the little pitiful old man and he gets it back, and then this facial expressions. I think a lot of them were used in like promo materials and stuff. Just a great like end of his life performance there. So the food fighting scene. As a kid, I always liked that because I just wanted to eat all that food.
That's a famous one. I think that was a good one for sure.
Going back and watching that now, it's just fun scene for the kids, I think.
Yeah, what was that radioactive glob that they were eating? I was kind of
when I was a kid, that's what I wanted to eat. I'm like, hey, how do I eat this? Where did they have you like
early 90s? Like,
yeah, because they like the empty scene was they're eating cheeseburgers and rolls because they can watch him break rolls, and like he grabs the sandwich and eats the burger or whatever it was, and then there's like the corn on the cob, and then they show the food and it's all like Play-Doh and paint and like stupid shit.
Yeah. I kind of liked all of the just anything that kind of took place on the ship. I kind of enjoyed, just because I love it's just such a beautiful set, and actually the suicide scene is kind of maybe my kind of a great scene. It was kind of a great scene
for sure. That's up there.
I'm gonna pick one other sort of wild card scene that I sort of just really enjoyed. Maybe it's because I kind of have an affinity for the sport, but it's actually the baseball scene where where he steals the hook. And I also just want to point out in that scene, I don't know if you guys kind of noticed this. I assume you may have, but the way the girl like moans when she takes off, when she dehooks.
I did note this.
I mean, it's borderline like pornographic.
It is gross. She like unhooks it and she's like,
very-
she makes a little sexual like groan.
She does, and it's
Yeah.
not just one; it's a couple. And she's like, but it's got like this heavy breath, and it's awesome.
I immediately
Kind of like she's she's
I just like the adult stuff in this movie just like threw me off every time I watched
another-
I catch something new.
The other part that was kind of like that was like, what the fuck is going on here? Is when he gets when Pam gets pushed off the ship or knocked off the ship by accident.
Yeah, and he goes underwater with the mermaid.
Just
yeah,
making out.
yeah.
Under.
I was thinking, man, 9-year-old me saw this. Like,
I know this girl. They were hot.
they were very.
Yeah, yeah, they were not messing around. Those mermaids. Yeah, I mean, while we're on the subject,
he is Peter Pan, you know.
he is Peter Pan, and I want to while we're kind of on that sort of these more another fun word, licentious topics.
Oh yeah, I know what that is, but again,
For the audience.
for the audience, you might want.
Yeah, we're talking about the more of the carnal, the more the sexual parts of the film, which once again were for a movie of that rating were
PG.
It was they were. I don't feel like you get away with some of that stuff today.
Are we gonna talk about Tinkerbell now? Is that where we're going?
Right, there's a really scene that I did note as well that felt so uncomfortable and weird and out of place. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I thought, first of all, obviously Julia Roberts' early 20s is pretty hot. As a little fairy, I just, it feels very strange. But she's showing a lot of legs for especially that first scene. It's like good. It's like she's one Daisy Dukes. It's like this is a kid's film, and clearly, she's just, this was not subtle. It wasn't like she was just, pretty face in a very conservative attire. She was out there letting it rip.
She was quite randy for Peter Pan as well. She was,
And she didn't give a fuck.
She
about
didn't.
where
no,
she was ready to go.
that was a very strange.
That was
It felt
very strict.
But just seeing you're talking about, I think of the when she gets bigger or she grows in the dollhouse or her house, and she explodes to full size, and she has that little scene with Peter and kisses him and admits her love for him or whatever. And it just felt like, now looking at it again, I don't even remember that scene in the last two watchings or beginnings of this movie in the last couple of years. And I was like, why? What was that scene for again? And like, why is there a love interest there? It just like reminded me of these weird inconsistencies of the overall movie, and the tone was all over the place.
Tone land
and like
way off.
So, yeah, when I was a kid, I was really confused by specific parts of this movie, and the Tinkerbell Pan relationship was one of the biggest ones.
Yeah. But she acts like it's permanent. Like she's grown and she has to. She even makes like a comment about it, and then she's small in the next scene. So
when I was trying to explore why did critics not like this, one of the reasons that I thought maybe they didn't like it for was like its identity. Like, what was it trying to be? Was it trying to be too many types of movies? Was it marketing to kids? But then it's got these weird really grown up thematical elements that you're talking about here, Nick. And I think it can get a little bit confusing for kids. I was really confused by the kiss thing, the kiss, the thimble, Tinkerbell, Pan, all that stuff.
Yeah, I know.
I was a kid with no idea.
And there has to
something.
You get these young children just kissing each other, and it's just what's just fine. I mean, it's kids do these things, but it's just kind of
Yeah, but then it carries through with Tinkerbell and Pan later.
Yeah, right. It feels off.
I've never read the books or the originals. I remember seeing some of the Pan or Peter Pan movies that came out later that kind of went on that subject, but I think that is all explained maybe in those, like the mythology of it all.
It is. My wife has made fun of me many times because she grew up on the Peter Pan movies, and when I later in life, I kind of explained to her as we're watching one time, there's Indians in Peter Pan, and she's like, yeah, it's like they're like part of the main part of the story, and many other things, mermaids, all these things. What? And I think a lot of this is explained. Tinkerbell, I think she's pretty scantily clad in the Disney version too. If I remember, I think she has cartoon lengths in there as well. So so I think some of the things that I'm confused by, it's my own fault for not knowing the source material. Like I said, as I've been made fun of many times about, but again, also it doesn't excuse the fact that it's, what's the word, licentious?
Yeah,
This isn't a book class.
Cardinal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know what? I was quick to look up her age to make sure it wasn't being weird. She was like 22 or something like that. So, she was a young of age. Julia Roberts is still just super weird. Still doesn't feel right. Yeah. I even wrote a note in here. It was like later on, Tinkerbell still hot, and it feels so wrong.
Maybe because that's a kid's movie. It's supposed to be a kid's movie.
Yeah,
Family.
might be.
I think Brian explained it earlier, like perfectly. It is a family, like epic. It's like a family movie through and through, from top to bottom. Like, I know watching kids movies nowadays, a lot of them are animated. A lot of them have parent jokes or adult jokes for the parents, because typically a parent has to bring a child to a movie. And so I think that's why they're made for both. But this one was like very made for adult audience.
This would be on my short list of poster child examples of what a family movie is.
Yeah. So the thing I wanted to bring up was that I really wish Spielberg was above this. But what is it with Spielberg in the nut shots?
Okay.
And then we got Shia LaBeouf taking multiple nut shots.
Who?
Shia
LaBeouf's in it?
No,
and
just in a general, just in general. Spielberg's like going out.
How old is he?
No. Remember he was getting pounded in Johnson as he's like straddling two Jeeps as they fly the Johnson.
Repeatedly,
Yeah. So I was going to ask our listeners out there, can anyone come up with any other nut shots from Spielberg? Because I can almost guarantee there's at least one more. Because if he's done it twice, he's done all those movies. There's a couple more nut shots out there. Maybe we'll ask ChatGPT. It could probably figure that out.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good one.
I like that challenge.
That's a great challenge to go after. I mean, I don't know. This film's just filled with like little Easter eggs that I just love to find, and like that's such a funny one. Now you can go into other Spielberg movies and try to find. So
yeah, Spielberg nut shots. It's also my. I've got a thrash metal band. That's
the name.
Yes, Spielberg nut shots. Yeah. Another thing I wanted to maybe discuss with you guys and get your input on was Thudball.
Thudball. What is Thudball?
The game of baseball they play?
No. Thudball. Remember Thud?
No.
Remember he turns into a...
Oh, okay. His name's Thud?
Yes.
The Lost Boy?
All right. Yeah. Thudball. He does it multiple times, guys. It's not even one time.
No, yeah.
3 times.
Many times.
Oh,
3 times.
Maybe that was like this, like...
I can guarantee you there was a McDonald's toy of this, right?
But something. There was some sort of tie-in with that. It was but at one time, it just like, it was the first appearance of Thudball. And it just like cuts from like this kid looking like a normal, child. And then it's just like this like charcoal gray, like weird looking ball thing that just, they could have spent a little more time on.
Yeah. Okay. I'll have to go back and analyze.
Please, for the love of God, Google an image, because I remember these scenes vividly because I just watched it. But like before he does it, there's a scene where he goes down the stairs on the ship and he lifts his legs straight up and his shoes go over his ears.
Yeah, right.
That's so his legs are straight up. But but like Googling the image, I always remembered that scene where he throws his legs up and they're straight as an arrow. I mean, they look like pieces of wood. And then the next scene, he is a perfect sphere and he's falling down. It's just like a hodgepodge of like,
it's a very
body
rough cut. It's probably the roughest cut in the film.
When I was a kid, I ate that up. I love that scene. That was hilarious to me.
Yeah, it was interesting.
So maybe that's part of the... Well, this needs to market the kids too.
Yeah.
But rough. Very rough. Thudball.
Thudball. I didn't even know it had another to it, but I do. I think a bowling ball kid. But
there were some things in this movie that I thought were like very, very quintessential early 90s. Clearly, you've got your kind of like your neon slime stuff, like your GAC or whatever. You've got a lot, skateboarding, one thing that I think I really kind of miss from the early 90s that was in this film that I enjoyed was kind of like the joning competitions, right? And I feel like it's been a long time since I've seen like a good, like old school joning competition. And so I just was curious of your guys' thoughts. Did you guys used to participate in joning competitions? Like back in elementary school, were you good at them? Did you have a particularly good Joan?
Hey, Nick, I've talked to people about joning and they've looked at me and said, what is joning?
Yes, I'm going to look at you right now and say,
see this guy right here?
Joning.
That's funny. Yeah, they may have missed it because
people don't know.
I think it's how much younger are you than us?
I'm 35, so
okay, I feel like those few years.
Yeah.
Might have made are you 39 or 40?
It's like
I'm almost 40.
Yeah.
So
joning,
really feel
all we did was joan on.
Yeah, that's all you did.
That's all we did. You got joned on or you joned on somebody. It's like on What About Bob when he's saying telling that when Bill Murray's like, "Good night, testicle head bosom beaver." One of my favorite lines. Yeah, just stringing together obscenities and joning on people. That was a pastime at Northwest High School and
maybe obviously that happened. I know it.
But what did you call it in your rich private school? What did you call it?
No, I never went to that. Yeah, definitely not that. But
we put each other.
Yeah, put her down. So yeah, no insults. I don't know what you would call it. Just I never heard that before.
Really?
Never
That's
once in my life I've heard that. It's funny.
I think it's I think those few years might have made the difference.
I think it's regional and very time centric.
Yeah.
Because I talked to a lot of people about joning and they just stare blankly at me. So.
Yeah.
One I always remember was one of my favorites was one kid. He's told us in like a silent bunkhouse. Where it was like on a field trip or something. And he said, "You're so poor that I went to your house and dropped a cigarette, and a bunch of cockroaches came out and started singing the song, and it went like this: clap your hands, stamp your feet, praise the Lord, we've got some heat."
That's a long Joan to remember for.
It was in like 3 years or third grade. I mean, it was like that was a mic dropper. It was an absolute mic dropper. Everyone went to bed.
That's awesome.
It was over. But yes, the joning competitions, I totally miss those, and I just wish. I mean, will the Zoomers? I mean, will they be back with the? Well, I guess we'd have to go for the what's before Zoom or after Zoomers.
Back to A?
My kids, and
18.
Well, my kids joan all the time.
Oh, good.
My kids are like, your mom's so fast she gets out of both sides of the bed or something.
Yeah, right.
They joan all the time. I don't know if they got those jones from me and April talking about this stuff, but I think they got them from something else because
I'm good.
they've got a lot of jones, ready to go, and they're ready to bust them out. So I don't know. Maybe it's making a comeback.
Your mom is so fat, her blood type is ragu. Remember that one?
When I was coming up, it was your mom's so fat, her blood type's Rocky Road.
Oh,
Having just watched, what was it? Dang it. Professor Klump? No, what is it?
Nutty Professor?
Nutty Professor.
Sure.
Yeah, so having just watched that with Crosby, he's like obsessed with these movies, like these laugh out loud slapstick comedies. And those were the insults that comedy club scene where they're just shooting back.
Yeah.
And then, who was it? Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, Dave Chappelle.
I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it.
Yeah, I will say this about the joning scene about when they're standing up in Rufio versus Penn, which we haven't talked about Rufio yet.
Oh my God, we haven't.
But the joning scene between the two of them was one of the weaker ones I'd seen in the movie. I think that
It wasn't great. It was, yeah.
I think there was a lot of repetition, and there.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't get away with true obscenities in a movie like this. So,
I think, well, if we want to get on the Rufio subject, I think that really all I have to say about Rufio is that death scene. I'd give him the Oscar. I mean, it was a fucking brilliant.
absolutely.
Let's
I actually kind of forgot that he died for when I was like, how many more Lost Boys died in that battle?
He did great. I was not a big fan of Rufio throughout the movie. I don't think that guy's a super strong actor, which is fine, and not everyone has to be. But I do think, number one, he is one of the three main character arcs in this movie, and he has a great character arc.
Yeah, he's out for sure.
And number two, when he dies, that death scene really gets stuck, and it stuck with me when I was a kid because Rufio died.
Right.
I'm a kid, and I'm just like,
because he's the toughest.
yeah, Rufio died. Like that's when it's like, okay, this has some stakes in it. Like the main lost boy, who's a kid too, dies. There's this kid. So now you're back to Hook being, all these people saying, oh, Hook's not menacing, Hook's not formidable. It's like he fucking kills Rufio. Like Bangarang, like you tell me Hook's not the villain. So anyway,
Dante Bosco, that's his name. The only reason I know that is because he's on TikTok, and every so often he shares, or every week he shares it's Residual Check Friday, where he opens up his stack of residuals for all his shows and movies he's been in.
oh my god,
And it's just hilarious that he just goes through these random shows.
What was the end?
can you?
Not a lot. There's just like random, like rollerblading.
If I had to guess, I'd say he was in Three Ninjas, but I have no idea.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I
just made that up.
But he's just in like weird, like this 74th episode of Law and Order or whatever it is. It's like kid number 16.
Sure.
So that's all. And every time you open the check, it's like $44 or it's 17 cents or it's just. But this would had to be like that was a brilliant acting like role for him. It's just awesome.
He was well cast because he did what he needed to do, and which was a lot of performance. It was just kind of like being the big badass, But then, like Nick said, he actually really pulls off a great death. I guess we should maybe start thinking about, we've been exploring the movie and talking about the movie, but again, as being critical mess, wanting to always return to why we think this movie, not just what we think about the movie, but what we think about how the movie was received. Do you guys? I guess I don't know. Is there any other main beats of the movie that we need to hit on at this point?
Well, I think we need to at least quickly talk about the end.
Okay. Yeah. We need to unpack what went wrong for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't need to belabor this, but I just thought the whole sort of alligator or crocodile, was it alligator or crocodile? I don't remember.
Crocodile.
Whatever.
Yeah,
subplot.
I think.
Which, by the way, did Happy Gilmore not just kind of? I feel just a couple years later. Croc taking a hand.
Yeah.
I feel like
It's a thing,
Croc.
yeah.
I know it's not. It's a thing. It's
Yeah,
not teeth.
it's definitely
I feel like
a thing. Yeah.
it's just like a
Star Wars, every Star Wars.
Damned alligator bit my eye.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Cut me down all the time.
It was a little bit coincidental, but anyways, it wouldn't be the first time the Happy Madison team stole some stuff.
Well, they directly lifted Apollo Creed's character from Rocky 3 and who he was.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
So,
Shade us. But anyways, I just felt that the climactic scene was far from the best scene in the movie, and that the whole kind of way the kind of the statue fell on Hook and then he just disappears, which is
It disappears.
felt contrived to me.
Yeah. The last act was rough, for sure.
Yes, if they couldn't figure out if it finished the movie.
do you think it felt contrived because it was a crocodile, because they couldn't get away from that? Or because of the way that he died?
Both.
Or the way he disappeared? Like,
Because all of it,
problem.
honestly, all of that, something I feel like much more interesting could have happened. He was in such a vulnerable moment. He was about to lose, and then of course the villain's got to have one last gasp, where he goes after that last lunge with the sword, with the hidden sword, and it just didn't feel like a full comeuppance, right, or a just ending for Hook. For me,
I hear you. Can I push back a little bit?
please.
So we talked about that this movie is Hook, and I've sort of, I guess compared it to Joker or some of these other movies that, the villain is the name of the movie. Yeah. So it's, we're going to have some layers to the villain. And we've explored a little bit about how Hook goes to all this trouble just to have a worthy opponent. I mean, he lets Peter Pan go and train for 4 days, 3 days, or whatever they negotiate down to come back and fight him. So Hook's driving motivator is not wealth, it's not power, it's winning a fight.
Yeah, that's some adrenaline.
That's what he wants. It's the Goodfellas character. He just is the adrenaline of the action. It's not the winnings. It's not the power. Not the status. It's the fight itself.
And the glory.
The glory of winning the fight and having people respect that you won.
Right.
And so, at the very end, you see Pan. He's made this whole character arc, and now he's a superhero. And he's gonna let him live because he's the noble, protagonist. He's gonna let Hook live, and he's gonna go. And then Hook, very interestingly, says the one thing that makes Pan come back and fight him, and that's that I'm gonna come get your kids again. Like, I'm gonna take what you think is, because he just has to fight Pan. He has to fight and win. That's his motivator. That may not be the Hook of old, but that's the Hook now. That's the Hook in this story. Pan comes back and they fight, and he does the whole I've got the sword up my sleeve, fights dirty. He does anything he can, including fight dirty in front of everyone, just to win, just to beat Pan. Even so much as to go for the hook, the miscalculated thrust into the croc, and he can't pull his hook out. Now that's unrealistic. Sure, he would just be able to lift it up. Okay, we'll just set that aside. It's the sequence of events that happen. He goes into the croc, and then the croc's his downfall. So how I'm pushing back a little bit there is, I don't necessarily know if him getting this ultimate comeuppance would have even been as cathartic, because he was kind of likable. Would you say he was likable? Is that just me?
No, I think definitely in a way. Yeah, I mean, he was charming.
I think that might have been just Dustin Hoffman's.
I mean, of course, but that's right.
His.
You can't really separate them. I mean, that's why casting's so huge, and that's why Julia Roberts and Robin Williams had such a problem with them, because casting. But I guess that, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, like, I wonder if despite that, do you still feel, is it a lazy writing thing? Is it the events that actually happened thing? Did you really want him to get what he deserved? What did you want?
I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel like it was a satisfying conclusion. I just, and this is obviously a very subjective thing. I didn't feel like momentum was carried through in the end.
I think it would have been far more powerful if it was Hook being stabbed in retaliation to Rufio dying and being stabbed at the end, or being, cut down by Hook.
So, do you think that would have?
I think that would have been far more powerful, because then it would have been a full-blown sword fight, and somebody would have gotten both their hand.
And he would have been defeated by a person, and not just a
magical disappearance.
It just felt like a little cheap. I don't know. Yeah. It wasn't like
I see where you're coming from.
It definitely wasn't as climactic, because we ended up getting the biggest climactic battle, the kids versus the pirates, and then it kind of molded into this second half of this big thing. And I was like, it wasn't as exciting as that. I think that was because they went so big with the ship, and then they went down to the ground with the croc and all that stuff. And I was like, maybe not.
I kind of like that he died as a result of his Achilles heel, and that's his fear of clocks.
I mean, that is funny.
You wouldn't try to jam.
It's still enjoyable.
When Wendy / Maggie says, yes, boy, yes. She looks and sounds exactly like Emperor Palpatine. You guys remember that scene? And I don't even feel bad saying that because they legitimately put her in all that old.
Yeah, she's falsely old.
And just like Emperor Palpatine, like that guy wasn't that guy like fucking 35 when he was originally Emperor Palpatine. Yeah, right. So I don't feel like I'm disparaging Maggie's appearance there, but she really did look and sound like Palpatine. I'm gonna have to check.
Yeah, well, compare to contrast later. Yeah.
Check me on that. I think we, Brian, as you said, we just need to, kind of talk a little bit, before we wrap up about, kind of why this movie was perceived the way it was, and maybe a little bit about, why, just to, the very, very much the premise. Why did critics not like this movie at the end of the day?
The Austin Chronicle says, but honestly, who cares about Pan the man? It's the boy we want. Leave the problems of the grown-ups looking for lost childhoods to the pop psychologists forging theories of Peter Pan syndromes and Cinderella complexes. Give us the kid who refuses to mature. A kid who flies, who crows, and is in love with his own shadow. A kid who knows there's no turning back and that it's all or nothing. So the Austin Chronicle wants Peter Pan.
Yeah.
This movie's called Hook.
Just a very quick observation, and this is very anecdotal, but it seems like the people who have these critics that have problems with this movie, it seems to be kind of a different reason every time.
There are a lot of reasons.
All right, so which is interesting. I don't know what that means.
It's not just one. I think it's a matter of expectations. I mean, this Austin Chronicle, this is a top reviewer on Rotten Tomatoes. But yeah, this review.
When was that review?
They want
show the year.
Yeah, it does.
So I looked at
they don't want a deep character. That's what they're saying. They don't want a grown-up Peter Pan or a deep character. And if you watch the trailer, the strap line says, "What would happen if Peter Pan grew up?"
Yeah.
Not what would happen if Peter Pan was retold by Steven Spielberg live action in 1991. What would happen if Peter Pan grew up? This is almost a revisionist history, fictional revisionist history future.
Yes.
Story. And so I don't know why Austin Chronicle. I don't know why you want the boy who loves his own.
I did notice
that's not what it was promised to you.
I did notice this pattern in the reviews that I read. It was so hard to find some or pull some out because they were so different. And it felt like people were finding reasons as a critic to be like, oh, why was it hated 30 years ago or 25 years ago or whatever? I'm going to review it now. I'm going to find something I don't like about it inside the technical aspects of it or the script writing of it or whatever. They didn't just, and they were all of the 90s kids, like early 80s, mid 90s age range. And so it was interesting to like try to find critics that gave it a review that wasn't so specific to this one scene or this one specific aspect or whatever it was, like you were talking about.
This review was written in 2000, by the way.
Yeah. So what, not even
actually
years later?
You know what? A lot of the reviews on here say they were written January 1st, 2000. That may just be as far back as the digital on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
So it was probably written when the movie was launched.
Yeah, I think I could see.
Yeah, December 13, 91 was when the full review was written. So
I can see an argument because I think people were confused when they saw this movie because it's called Hook. I expected a movie about Hook or a twist from Hook larger than it was.
Or not even a movie about Hook, but just not Peter Pan, just not a retelling of Peter Pan. Clearly, it's a new story.
A new story.
Indicated by the completely different name. It's not called Pan. It's not called Peter Pan. It's not called Peter.
Yeah.
It's not called Neverland. It's called fucking Hook.
PP Phone Home. Yeah. Like the other review I read. That was, read that. Yeah. This other review was PP Phone Home, or at least get a new agent by somebody at the Baltimore Sun.
Baltimore Sun. So clever.
Clever. Yeah, it's so hard. I don't know this.
And I want to make sure that our listeners know that we're not poo-pooing critics here. At least I'm not, because more often than not, I side with critics. And as we'll see in future episodes, it's going to be a lot more disagreement between at least me and Grizz about, critics versus audience. So this is kind of an interesting, kind of maybe a divergent first episode where we all are actually kind of disagreeing with the critics. But just wanted to throw that out there for expectations.
A lot of it, we have to at least have to admit a lot of it, especially for people who have seen this movie so much like you guys. It's nostalgia. A lot of it. It's hard. It's impossible to look at this through.
Yeah, it's very hard to look at movies from our childhood that we were so ingrained in our early memories, because it's that for 7 years, the next few years after that you are incredibly impressionable. And I think these movies just like were ingrained in because they were all the exact same age, like it had that feel that like they were so good about texture and like personality and like pulling in the exact aspects of that lifestyle at the time. And I just thinking of all the things that kids say, like the script writing for it was always interesting, like how they write childhood movies from the early 90s and 80s and stuff like that. It just sounded like you were like talking as a child at the time, not an adult writing for a child.
Well, so then let's talk about on the flip side of that, aside from the nostalgia, why is this movie beloved by audiences in a way that maybe critics might not appreciate?
I think it's just, I don't know, it's just fun. It's enjoyable. It's just like a very, like he said, it's a family fun movie. A large group of parents, adults, and kids can all enjoy it. I think my kids still enjoy it to this day. They're 6 and 9 in 2023. And then we were, you know, what, how old are you when you first saw it? 9?
9, yeah.
And then I was, you know, a little bit younger than that. And then you were about the same age. So like, right, it's just that magnetism to both of those ages at the exact same time, all like, I don't know.
Would you guys classify, and this is to answer your question, would you guys classify this in terms of genre as an adventure movie? I know genres are sometimes hard to describe, but I would say it's probably an adventure movie. And I'm going to say this. I think of all the genres, adventure as a genre is going to more often than not give you widespread general audience high marks.
Yeah, I think that's true.
It's like reading a page turner.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
There's not a lot between the lines. You're always reading.
Easy to digest.
Easy to digest.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at it just in terms of how much you enjoy a movie, which I think most people who rate a movie as a layman, they rate it based on how much they enjoyed it, not based on cerebrally how good of a piece of art is this. And that's a concept we're really going to dig into in future episodes.
Yeah.
So that would be my answer to that. Is I think it's an adventure movie.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
How do you not like that as an audience? I did want to bring up real quick something that we're going to be referring to for future movies is the Google reviews. So pretty much any movie you can pop into your Google search bar and type the movie and then movie reviews. So I typed Hook movie reviews. Pretty much any movie you do that for, Google's going to give you like a rich snippet, like a smart snippet at the beginning. It's going to aggregate audio reviews that it gets from all sources. So the main ones are Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, and Metacritic. There are other review platforms. I mean, like Common Sense Media and stuff like that. There's all kinds of stuff. They're not transparent about exactly where they get their reviews, but it's a really good way. One of the things we didn't preface when we started this episode was Rotten Tomatoes reviews are good for basically not necessarily judging how good a movie is, but how widespread appeal it has, or how many people generally liked it. Now, if you want to, because there's movies out there that have got a 99 Rotten Tomatoes score, and everyone just kind of likes the movie. So a better way to look at it is to see actually what the movies were rated. Rotten Tomatoes used to show this. You used to be able to click on the rating, or actually it would show right there on the page. It would say like 78% Rotten Tomatoes, and also like a 7.9 out of 10 score. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I wish they did, but they don't. Well, Google reviews to the rescue. So Hook's Google reviews are 4.4 out of 5. So it's interesting that you look right above it. You see Rotten Tomatoes 29%, and then right below it, Google reviews 4.4 out of 5. So
they're pulling from the critic score.
That's pulling everywhere. Pulling audience,
and then
critics.
the one number.
Rotten Tomatoes is showing critic score at the top. IMDb is showing 6.8 out of 10. Metacritic showing at 52%. So the 4.4 out of 5 is interesting. We won't dig into that now, but it's just interesting to note that this movie has a 29% critic and a 4.4 overall out of 5 score. Just wanted to throw that out there. That's something that we'll probably look into down the road.
So one thing I just wanted to make sure we touched on before we wrap up is who was the older gentleman who lost his marbles? What's his name?
Toodles.
Toodles.
Yeah.
How could I forget?
I've lost my mom.
Remember when he just gets super high on fairy dust at the end and
It just flies.
flying around?
Yeah.
How do we think that ended?
The movie in general.
No.
His flight.
Do we think he
just dropped out of the sky.
ran out of dust? I mean, he just seemed to
Hopefully.
be kind of out of it to begin with.
Hopefully, as the dust wears off, you gradually descend.
Which slowly.
Let's just pretend like that.
This is very, very cold. He's just an old man wearing a little sweater vest, and he's going to be
Nick, I think he was ready to go.
Yeah, it was.
I guess that's true.
He got his marbles back, and he's ready. Yeah,
fuck it.
it's
Start
the time. But didn't
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Peter and his 2 kids get sprinkled dust, and they start to fly to Neverland maybe? Because the movie fades to black, and it shows the 1 star on the right of the screen, and it shines, and that's the 2nd star to the right.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So I was always confused by the ending. Now that I watched it again these last couple times with like a very keen eye, because he wakes up in the garden and you see Smee brushing the glass box.
Yes, right.
And I was like,
Yeah, what's up with
I was
that?
like, oh, that's a great little tidbit where
Wizard of Oz little.
because I was like, oh, yeah, that's great because it's a dream. I was like, awesome. And then he goes upstairs and everybody's like, oh, the kids are back. Finally, they weren't kidnapped or what, like they're rescued. And then
So what the hell is Smee doing there?
I don't know. I don't know if it was just a little Easter egg, like an obvious Easter egg. I
Well,
guess.
what would the Easter egg point?
Or maybe it's Wendy because she's the creator / writer, a famous writer of these stories. And so maybe she used people around her to tell these stories. And that was the begrudging guy that did the groundskeeping outside or something.
Dude, he clearly was the Smee from Neverland.
Not clearly. He was just some guy brushing a bunch of. I don't
I think
know.
it was
I can't
supposed to
remember.
be. You were supposed to pick up on that it was the same guy.
I know it's the same guy. I'm just saying.
I know.
I don't think he was like.
characteristic.
I don't think he was like, wow, rawr,
Yeah.
or whatever. I don't know if he was just saying.
You guys, maybe there's some hidden Smee character arc where he's like done, Hook's dead. He's sick of being the sycophant, and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna go to the real world and live there, and I'm gonna be a broom man.
I feel like Smee can handle his shit. I mean, I feel like he learned. There's not a lot of confidence, but
Good experience. Good
It's like,
job.
it's like
good
he's
job
bringing
experience.
his Netherlands skills to England, and now he's gonna, start an underground crime ring.
maybe this is a screenplay to start.
Could be
It'll just be called Smee.
Yeah. I really hope that gets made.
Smee. Smee's me.
Who would since Hoskins is R.I.P. Who would be today's ideal Smee?
Oh gosh,
I feel like with Colin Farrell's recent outings, he could put on some makeup on Smee.
He could be
Kevin, or not Kevin, Fraser, Brendan Fraser.
Brendan Fraser?
Big comeback, resurgence. That'd be great. No, that little end scene with the fair. One little quick. I love these little like Easter eggs that are all over the movie. But this was a Spielberg. I think he had 2 or 3 cameos in the movie, and I couldn't even. There's no way I would have noticed it. But as they fly away at the end, and the fairy dust sprinkles down, it falls on a couple.
Yeah, I noticed that this time. I never noticed that
So
before.
that was Spielberg and Carrie Fisher.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Just
And they like slowly
silhouettes.
floated or whatever. Yeah. Well, that was nice.
There's a Phil Collins is in this movie.
Yes, in what?
Inspector Good.
Pirate? Inspector Good.
Inspector Good. Phil Collins.
How about Jason Alexander's Smee?
Oh, totally.
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
a good pick.
Could be a fun one.
He's got the physical comedy aspect of
Are
it.
there any like recastings? Like, because you talked about Robin Williams. Like, is there a recast that you would be like, oh, he would be perfect from the mid 90s?
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of people that could be him. Because he wasn't required. None of this Robin Williams-ness was really required.
It wasn't, but it was. I loved his personality in this. Like I don't know. I thought it was just wonderful, wonderfully playful. He was very business.
I'll give
When he
you
was
somebody.
the
You
lawyer.
ready for this?
Yeah.
Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas. This movie would have flopped even harder. Both
Romancing the Stone, Michael Douglas. Give me some bare chest. Give me a hot Peter Pan.
Could be a hairy chest.
Give me that.
You're a bare chested.
That slick back hair. Give me cocksucker.
A little too serious.
Okay, you put me on the spot. I had to go with somebody.
I got her.
That was kind of a joke,
Pretty good.
I mean,
but I'd watch it. I mean, you just say.
let Charlie Sheen,
Charlie, there would have been like a
Peter Pan.
what is that, 33rd and a half movie or whatever it's called.
He
Naked Beyond.
he would do better as the actual realized Pan kind of badass. I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what it's like to be high on dust.
Well, and then you've got the first.
He would have definitely been high on dust during this filming of this.
All right, guys. Well, I don't think there's anything left to talk about except for the fitness montage.
The sports montage movie aspect. Okay.
Very Rocky-esque.
Yeah, I mean, every movie, late 80s, early 90s, has got to have one.
Mm-hmm.
This one was very kind of like proto early 90s in that it was like combining sports. It was like combining like an extreme sport with an established sport and baseball, or excuse me. Well, I guess that's what it would be called. Skate big ball. Was there a name for that game?
No. Well,
The skateboarding basketball.
apparently there was a thud ball or whatever that.
Well, there's sled ball. That was more of
I'm just saying.
offensive weapon.
But I'm just saying, there's probably a name.
I think there may have been. I don't remember.
Neverland ball.
It was like
Sport.
skate slam. I think we should call it
something or
It
other.
was like a skate, and they dunked it. Yeah, and it
Very dangerous, no matter,
yeah, it was a dangerous sport. It actually, you know what's funny? This just occurred to me. We were talking about this movie. I'd seen it recently, but how similar that sort of game they invented was very similar to Alita Battle Angel. Remember, there's a game they play in that movie where it's on rollerblades, but it's the exact same premise. Like you're flying around, you're just trying to, and fly up and
I've
like
not seen the movie.
and
So
dunk on a basketball goal with while doing the extreme sport of rollerblading. So
Yeah,
anyway,
very similarities for sure.
so there was a little bit of an innovative move. But I thought, anyways, I don't know if you guys have thoughts on the montage, but I thought it was
I loved it.
felt right.
Was it it wasn't the first time we saw Neverland or the Lost Boys world or their little
It was
hide.
early though.
Yeah, it was very early. But I think that was just like a wonderful little cut. It was just like they used that sport or those like pathways to just show us all the characters, show us all the kids. And then they all had something they were doing. Like they all had these little quirks or little things they wore, like
Right.
the details for all that. And then they reshowed a lot of those little tiny trinket things when they were making weapons and like doing those, like they all had their own shtick. The guy had the thud ball. The other guy had his slingshot, and like all these guys had these little things that they all had those things on in those earlier things. So it's kind of interesting they had those early on.
I mean, I think it adds to the atmosphere. Just the montage. It allows you to really set up just a feel, a vibe, and quickly say a lot of things about a lot of characters and move the story and plot along really quickly. It's what you need out of a montage, and it was all done on their amazing practical set with their crazy set pieces and, costume and all that kind of stuff, which I thought was really good. Not by today's standards, but,
Treehouse skate park.
I mean,
it's pretty sick.
I mean,
even by today's standards.
yes.
I mean,
It's almost as cool as the Foot Soldier Palace on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when they're, in the arcade.
well, it's not too far.
Okay. Yeah. I'm getting way ahead of myself.
They set the world up for the Na'vi and Avatar in their true world. This is way better. So
All right, guys. Any final thoughts? Any concluding words of wisdom about the 1991 Steven Spielberg? I guess we can probably agree, pretty classic film. Any words of wisdom for those who maybe haven't seen it, or who maybe like us or like you guys have, it's a beloved film that you're kind of revisiting. Any final thoughts?
I'll say this. If you don't care about family movies or adventure movies or Robin Williams or Peter Pan or any of that stuff, you're still going to enjoy the movie for Dustin Hoffman and Bob Hoskins. The two of those guys just are endlessly fascinating to watch and are so good.
yeah,
And they really disappear into their characters, both of them.
yeah. I mean, you don't even recognize Hoffman.
I didn't even know that was Dustin Hoffman when I was a kid.
Oh yeah, absolutely not. This movie I think it can attract multiple audiences and people and types because it was so totally different. In some of those reviews we read, like they were saying it was so up and down, dark, light, happy, goofy, laughy, whatever. And I think that's why it's so good for most audiences that like it, or everybody likes it. I would always recommend it for like families that have kids, but also for the adults that grew up on this movie to go back and rewatch it and like laugh at like some of the ridiculous special effects or this incredibly funny scenes with Hoffman or Peter or whatever it is. Like some of this stuff is just absolute gold from the early 90s.
And I'm going to add Charlie Korsmo to my list because he's actually very understood. He's a solid. He's got he's funny and really good stuff.
Yeah, and he's got some good dialogue. Yeah.
Was he in more childhood movies? Because I feel like
I only know him from What About Bob and Can't Hardly Wait.
okay, interesting.
I'm sure he's been in other stuff. I don't feel like Googling him right now because we're doing closing
It's
thoughts.
funny, yeah.
I would say those three. It's worth it for the performances. I'll say this: there's also another small subset of people who may have the CGI fatigue, and you just if you're the type of person who you love when you see like a Fraggle Rock or a Muppets or a Labyrinth, just a really really great practical set that you feel like you could just want to go live in. Neverland does this. I did see some criticism as to how this isn't really how Neverland should look. It was a lot of earth tones and browns and reds where Neverland's supposed to be green and lush, and I disagree. I think it was spot on, just the way it should have been. So
Yeah,
those are my closing thoughts.
This is Neverland for me. So For sure.
Yeah. About you, Nick?
Yeah, I think that, just generally speaking, if you enjoy Steven Spielberg films, you're going to like this movie. I think that to me, it wasn't a great movie, but it was a very enjoyable movie with some really enjoyable performances by some very talented people who were clearly having a lot of fun doing what they were doing. Kind of to your point about Neverland and how it was treated, to me, like Neverland, I think the movie, one of the things that made it kind of special overall was kind of that juxtaposition of the real world in Neverland, and to me, how the real world felt like the real world and Neverland felt like a play. Like it felt like it was on a stage. It felt like it was just kind of that super whimsical sort of nature. And I thought that those two kind of contrasting realities was just a really interesting part of the movie. So I think a lot to like. I think in my opinion, I wrote down. I wasn't even trying to make a pun, but my very last note on the movie was last 30 minutes is a heavy Peter. So that might have been unintentional. But so, yeah, I wouldn't expect it to, at least from my opinion, to wrap super strong. But, at the same time, I think there's a lot of reasons why, we talked about that a little bit, why, you might not have a problem with it at all and might think it's a great ending. So a little something for everybody. Movie, I think people should check out. I think, Brian's point about it being an adventure film, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And a big reason why, people, the people loved it and the critics didn't. That's been our first discussion about Hook. We hope to have a lot more future discussions about. We've got a big long list of movies to talk about.
Can I let you guys each real quick here, a little segment I like to do?
Yeah.
Can I let you guys each guess what other Robin Williams movie had a worse disparity than this between the critics and audience? Critic 21, audience 73. It's he's been in a lot of movies. This one is definitely one he's well known for.
Just one movie?
Yeah, I'm going to let you guys guess. I'll give you each two guesses, and we'll just see what.
I'm going to go Patch Adams.
That's it.
Oh,
That's it.
Dang! Great guess.
Wow.
Shoot.
I am impressed. Very impressed. 21-73, worst disparity.
Dang.
I'm going to go the other one, Death to Smoochie.
Well, there was. I was going to give you two guesses to guess one. I did not have two queued up, but let me go and look and see what.
When did I remember that one?
Oh, I thought that was
That was the Barney one, right? Or the faux Barney or whatever he was.
Good. 42-66. So you're on the right track. You've got your finger on the pulse of the
Robin Williams' career.
Rotten Tomatoes, but yeah, there you go. Robin Williams' career. Nice. Sorry you didn't get the guess.
No, that's all right. He nailed it. That was perfect. No, I think the closing thoughts is just us globally, like us together, just overall enjoying this film, having mostly positive things to talk about, will be a massive contrast for the next episode. Just for the fact that Brian and I are usually audience to critic, Brian critic, me audience, general likable film. Will be the theme. Maybe we'll see. Maybe we won't. I don't know. I think that's the interesting thing about the next episode, like the future episodes. It's like how different minds will see this kind of thing. And I know Nick is far more technical to like the script writing, the overall tone of things. I'm just an overall general audience.
I'm going to say this. Aspirationally, I think our audience can at least trust our opinions, that we're not contriving a certain stance. And I'll say that because, to your point, this podcast was kind of founded out of the idea that we've realized we've been disagreeing on these movies and we are able to talk about it forever, and let's do a podcast kind of from that frame. And so the whole idea was, Brian's the critics, Grizz is the audience. But then our very first episode, where I could have very easily taken the stance of the critics, I didn't, because I genuinely like this movie. So I think that at least that points to the trustworthiness of, in the future, when I hate a movie that the critics also hated, that I actually do hate the movie, and I'm not just trying to do a gimmick for a podcast, because ultimately it's not about us disagreeing. It's about us exploring why people react to movies the way that they do. Because that's what I'm really interested in, is why do people like movies and why do people hate movies? I love that. So that's what we're about.
Well, thank you everybody for listening. This has been a critical and probably total mess, but we appreciate you guys, and until next time, we are out.